Have you ever stopped to think that every decision we make, big or small, shapes the course of our lives? We often blame others or even chance for our challenges, but does this really help us grow? Stoic philosophy challenges us to take full responsibility for our actions, seeing both choices and consequences as part of who we are. In today's video, we'll talk about how life changes when we let go of blame and embrace the power that exists in accepting our own journey with honor and courage. This reflection can be the first step towards transforming your relationship with everyday challenges. And if you believe that it is possible to evolve by understanding yourself better, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. Here, we talk about topics that can inspire your day and help you live with more awareness and purpose. Stoic thinkers such as Epictetus highlighted that much of our anger comes from confusing what is within our reach with what we cannot control. They taught that by recognizing this distinction, we begin to free ourselves from unnecessary guilt and frustration. Personal responsibility comes from understanding that while we cannot change external events, we always have the power to decide how to respond to them. For example, if we face a setback, we can choose to lament and blame others, or we can see this moment as an opportunity for learning and growth. Epictetus used a simple metaphor. We are like actors in a play. We do not choose the plot, but it is up to us to play our part to the best of our ability. Thus, taking responsibility is not only an act of courage but also of freedom. We stop being victims of circumstances and become the protagonists of our own stories. By embracing this vision, we begin to understand that there is no greater power than the control over ourselves. This change in perspective does not happen overnight, but each small conscious choice brings us closer to a fuller and more authentic life. Choosing how we respond to everything that happens to us is what true freedom is all about, not doing whatever we want. For the Stoics, freedom is not an absence of external limitations, but rather the ability to control our own mind and our decisions. Every choice, no matter how small, is a manifestation of this inner power. Throughout our lives, we are all confronted with situations that we did not choose, challenges, adversities, obstacles. However, Stoic freedom lies precisely in how we choose to deal with these circumstances. No matter what the world throws at us, we always have the ability to decide how we react. Think about it. You cannot control traffic, but you can choose how you react to it. You cannot avoid criticism, but you can decide how to interpret it and whether you will let it affect your state of mind. In this sense, every decision we make, whether faced with difficulty or a moment of pleasure, is a reflection of our ability to exercise true freedom. But what the Stoics teach us is that behind every choice lies an immense responsibility. Every decision, no matter how simple, carries with it a consequence. When we become aware of this, we begin to act with more purpose, knowing that each step we take shapes the path ahead of us. Therefore, true freedom is not the absence of external limitations, but the ability to decide how we react to them. And the more we align ourselves with this perspective, the freer and more in control of our lives we become. Being a person of honor is not about being perfect, but rather about taking responsibility for our own actions, regardless of the circumstances. For the Stoics, living with honor means not looking for external blame, but accepting the consequences of choices made with courage and integrity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors, taught that what happens around us does not depend on us, but how we react to it depends entirely on us. Honor lies precisely in this ability to look at our own actions and say, I accept the results, whether they are good or bad. Honor does not lie in avoiding failure, but in recognizing that making mistakes is part of the process of growth. When we admit that we are responsible for our choices, even when the outcome is not what we expected, we are practicing an essential virtue. Instead of looking for excuses or blaming others, the man of honor dedicates himself to learning from the consequences and growing from them. This act of acceptance is a demonstration of maturity. We realize that the world is not about our failures, but rather how we respond to them when we let go of the need to defend our ego. Honor for a Stoic is not an image to be maintained, but an attitude that is reflected in the way we face what life brings us. Therefore, acting with the dignity of someone who understands that they are walking the path of true wisdom by taking responsibility for their actions does not equate to being a person of honor. Reason is one of the greatest tools we have to make more conscious and balanced decisions. For the Stoics, reason is not just an intellectual resource but an essential virtue that allows us to act in a way that is aligned with our true nature and the deepest values we seek to cultivate. Life is unpredictable by definition. Every choice involves risk, and we cannot control all the factors around us. However, by exercising reason, we can make more considered and less impulsive decisions. Instead of acting driven by momentary emotions or external pressures, reason helps us to reflect and evaluate the consequences of our actions in a clearer and fairer way. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our mind is like a tool. If not trained and used deliberately, it can easily be influenced by irrational thoughts and desires. But by applying reason, we can exercise authority over our minds and ensure that our decisions are guided by wisdom, not impulsiveness. Reason also helps us understand the limits of what we can control and accept what is beyond our power. When we understand the nature of our choices and the consequences they carry, we can act with more serenity, knowing that we did the best we could. Thus, reason is not only a means of making more effective decisions, but also a path to living with more harmony and wisdom. By making it our guide, we can build a more balanced life that is more aligned with our deepest values. Self-knowledge is the key to truly understanding our choices. Without it, we are like a boat adrift, carried by the currents of circumstances and emotions. But when we understand who we are, our motivations, our values, and even our flaws, we begin to make decisions that are more aligned with our true essence. Stoic philosophy teaches that by knowing our own nature, we can act with more clarity and less interference from external impulses. Epictetus said that, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." To react wisely and in a balanced way, we need to understand what moves us. What makes us make impulsive decisions? What makes us blame others or beat ourselves up when something goes wrong? These questions are essential for personal growth. As we cultivate self-awareness, we become better able to discern between what we truly desire and what is just a momentary reaction. Over time, we come to realize that many of our choices are shaped by beliefs and external influences that are not always aligned with our true will. This helps us act more authentically and assertively. Self-knowledge also allows us to recognize our limitations and our strengths, and thus make choices that are within our control. We know what we can improve and what we should accept, which in turn helps us make wiser decisions and avoid regrets. Therefore, self-knowledge is not just a tool for self-discovery, but an ongoing practice that makes us more aware and responsible for our choices, allowing us to live with more integrity and alignment with our principles. While Stoic philosophy teaches that we should focus on what we can control, it also recognizes that our environment has a significant impact on our choices and actions. However, Stoics believe that rather than being passively shaped by our environment, we're able to decide how it affects us. The world around us can be turbulent, full of external pressures, social influences, and imposed standards. But by developing our inner autonomy, we can resist these pressures and choose how we respond to them. Marcus Aurelius, for example, often reflected on how people around him might act impulsively or selfishly, but he knew that it was responsible for his own actions and attitudes. This does not mean ignoring the reality of our environment, but rather having the wisdom to not allow it to dictate who we are or how we act. We can be influenced by our surroundings, but we should not be dominated by them. If we are surrounded by negativity, for example, we can decide how to not let it contaminate us. If society values certain standards or behaviors, we can choose to live by our own principles without bowing to external expectations. The Stoics teach us that by developing inner strength, we can filter out external influences and act in ways that align with our values. This is no easy task, but it is the constant practice of strengthening our minds and focusing on what is truly important to us. Ultimately, our environment can shape our experiences, but how we respond to it is entirely up to us. Real power is found in how we choose to interact with the world. When something goes wrong, searching for someone or something to blame is normal. This immediate impulse to look outside of ourselves for blame is a common human reaction, but Stoic philosophy challenges us to move beyond this temptation. The Stoics believe that by blaming others, we are actually taking away the power we have over our own lives. Epictetus stated that it is not things that afflict us, but our opinion of them. This means that when something hurts or disappoints us, our first reaction is often to project that blame onto the other person or the circumstances. However, by taking responsibility for our part in any situation, even if it's just in how we reacted, we are taking back control and authority over our lives. Blaming others is a way of avoiding responsibility, of not having to face our own choices. It may give us a temporary sense of relief, but by doing so, we are depriving ourselves of the opportunity to learn and grow. We are ignoring the lesson that the experience has to teach us when we blame someone. And more importantly, we are distancing ourselves from our ability to improve and make wiser choices in the future. The Stoics invite us to adopt a different mindset. Instead of blaming, we should reflect on what we can learn from the situation. What led us to make the decision that we now see as wrong? How can we act differently next time? This internal look is more productive than simply looking for someone to blame. By replacing guilt with reflection and responsibility, we are practicing one of the greatest Stoic virtues, self-awareness. When we accept that our lives and our choices are ultimately in our hands, we become freer to grow and more capable of transforming our circumstances. Despite the fact that mistakes are inevitable, we frequently treat them as irreversible defects that we should conceal or avoid at all costs. For the Stoics, mistakes are actually disguised opportunities for learning. How we deal with our mistakes, how we accept them, and what we choose to do with them is what defines our character. The famous Stoic philosopher Seneca once remarked, "There is no favorable wind for those who do not know where they are going." This teaching reminds us that mistakes are inevitable, but they are also a reflection of our attempt to follow a path, to make choices, and to learn from them. We cannot expect everything to work out all the time, but we can ensure that each mistake teaches us something valuable. Accepting mistakes does not mean being complacent or failing to seek improvements, but rather recognizing that they are part of the process of growth. When we face our mistakes with honesty and humility, we can learn lessons that help us make better decisions in the future. This allows us not only to improve as individuals, but also to live with more serenity, without the burden of trying to escape or deny what happened. Stoic philosophy teaches us that by accepting mistakes with dignity, we are better able to transform these moments into sources of wisdom. Instead of lamenting or blaming ourselves, we should ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? This reflection allows us to transform even the most challenging moments into steps towards our development. Therefore, the challenge is not to avoid mistakes, but to learn to accept them with integrity and courage, knowing that they are part of our journey. Mistakes are just a step on the path to wisdom. True power lies not in maintaining a rigid position, but in being able to change, evolve, and grow based on our experiences and decisions. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the wise man is the one who does not cling to what has been done, but who always seeks to improve, even when faced with difficulties or failures. The capacity for change is one of the greatest strengths we can develop. Resistance to change often stems from fear or insecurity. We try to hold on to what we know even if it's no longer working for us. Stoicism challenges us to let go of this need for permanence and opens us to flexibility and constant learning. As Heraclitus said, "Nothing is permanent except change." Accepting accountability for our decisions also makes room for change. This doesn't mean that we have to change our core beliefs or values every time, but rather that we can adjust our behavior, perspective, and actions when circumstances arise. If we learn something from a mistake, we can use that knowledge to do something different next time. If we're faced with a new situation, we can apply our wisdom to deal with it more maturely. Change is a natural part of life, and resisting it can trap us in old patterns that no longer serve us. Stoic philosophy teaches us to embrace change as an opportunity, not a threat. Strength lies in adapting, learning, growing, and most of all, accepting that life is in constant movement, and we, as human beings, must be too. Therefore, true strength lies not in keeping everything as it's, but in accepting that we are beings in constant evolution. We have the opportunity to improve ourselves with every choice we make, and it is during this process of transformation that we experience genuine growth. Living with dignity ultimately means understanding that every decision we make reflects who we are and who we wish to be. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true happiness does not come from external circumstances, but from the way we live and react to what life presents us. Living with purpose is choosing at every moment to act according to our values and principles, regardless of the difficulties that arise. For the Stoics, living with dignity means not bowing to external pressures, not letting oneself be carried away by circumstances, and most importantly, not giving in to the temptation to blame others or circumstances. By accepting our responsibility for the choices we make, we can follow a path that is aligned with our true essence, a life guided by reason, virtue, and wisdom. This is an invitation to reflect on what really matters. Each day brings a new opportunity to live with more wisdom, more serenity, and more authenticity. When we decide to act with dignity and awareness, we understand that the purpose of life is not to avoid difficulties, but to learn from them and grow through them. Thus, the greatest achievement of a man of honor, as Stoicism teaches us, is not to avoid mistakes, but to have the courage to learn from them, to remain firm in the face of adversity, and to live according to his principles, regardless of external circumstances. Living with dignity is living according to what is truly important to us, and when we choose that path, regardless of the consequences, we find true meaning and true peace. We have reached the end of this video, but the reflection it brings can continue to transform your daily life. Remember, taking responsibility for your choices and living with dignity are pillars that can guide you in any situation. It's not about perfection, but about living with courage, learning from every step, every mistake, and every success. If you believe these principles can help others or enrich your journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, you will find content that inspires, motivates, and helps you face challenges with serenity and wisdom. Like, share, and leave your opinion in the comments. It is very important for us to continue bringing reflections that really make a difference. See you in the next video. And remember, life is made of choices, and the consequences of those choices are the greatest path to growth.